So Liverpool and Manchester United have officially announced that they want to form and be founder members of a European Super League. Make no mistake about it, what you are witnessing here is a temper tantrum. It's a hissy fit. It's toys out the pram, it's spitting the dummy out, whatever you want to call it. It is basically a toddler stamping its feet in the middle of the supermarket because when you've walked past the sweetie section, you won't buy them anything. Not that I would do such a thing, you understand. But this is what we're witnessing at the moment. Because they didn't get their way. They were outvoted. And not only were they outvoted, and when I say outvoted, I'm talking about projects Let's Help the Rest of Football Out, but secretly help ourselves out, if you remember, which was vetoed by pretty much anyone and everyone. But what also happened as a part of that, which was I think the top 6 clubs, what you would consider to be the top 6 clubs, their fan groups all got together and released a joint statement basically saying we don't want this. So despite their fans not wanting it, despite football vetoing it, despite the fact that by and large almost everybody to a man and woman said this is not a good idea at all, we reject this concept of football, they've spat their dummy out and they've carried on anyway. And this time it's a European Super League. Well, I'm going to put a spoiler here because what I'm going to say is, I'm going to put it in the video title as well, I say we cut them adrift. It's as simple as that. Let me just tell you the details as I understand them. Apparently there will be 5 clubs from England that would get invited into this European Super League. 4 from Germany, 3 from Italy. I don't know the full composition of it, but as I understand it, it would be a 16 to 18 team European Super League. It would be a closed shop, so it wouldn't matter if Leicester, for instance, were to win the Premier League again, or let's say by some miracle Aston Villa won the Premier League this season, they carried on their fantastic form, it wouldn't matter. They wouldn't qualify for the European Super League because the European Super League is a closed shop. The European Super League is just for the elites, the glamour clubs. You know the clubs of which I'm talking about. Now, what is funny about this is they have still very, very graciously, without any self-awareness at all, they very, very graciously let it be known, but it's okay, we will still participate in your league, in the Premier League. Oh, will ya? Oh, really? Because, quite frankly, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the way football's gone, and I don't just mean now. I mean probably over the last 20 years. Maybe more. Possibly since Sky started, really, we've seen the gradual progression of this. We've seen fan influence diluted. We have seen it become a ridiculous money game. I was having a chat when we did our video with Paul and with Bill, and Tross was there as well, and we were talking about what a community club West Ham used to be, and I was telling a story about when I was at school in Ilford that they brought the FA Cup round, the players did. I went to Alvin Martin's football academy. Not that it did me any good if you've ever seen me play football. I guess that's what happened when you learn technique from a centre half. I jest, of course, Alvin Martin was a fantastic player. I can't tell you how much was in the community, how much West Ham were part of the community. We used to have a local club that all the adults used to go to, and a community club and a community centre. The players would come to that. I think by the time I'd got to 10 or 11, I'd definitely met Trevor Brooking 2 or 3 times. I've met Jeff Hurst, Billy Bonds, Ray Stewart. These were just people that you met because it was a community. You all heard the stories that these players used to get on the bus and so on, travel to the games, and you'd see them in the pub. Not I didn't when I was a child, clearly, obviously. But there seemed to be a separation. There seemed to be a point where footballers became mega stars, almost like Hollywood stars, the footballer. They multi-millionaires, and there was a massive separation between the footballers and the fans. Pretty much quite closely followed on from that was the clubs started to separate from the fans, stopped being community clubs, started being franchises or brands or businesses, or whatever you wanted to call them. But I think almost the end game and the finish of that journey from community club to super brand is this European Super League. But first of all, let's just look at how unsporting that is, that it would be a closed shop and that nobody else could get into it. Yet they would bless us with their presence by appearing in our Premier League. How aloof, how condescending, how patronising that is, I think is completely lost on them. And I am so miffed with these clubs and these super clubs who seem to think there's something special. But let's be fair, if you've ever been to Old Trafford, if you've ever been to the Emirates, you could hear a pin drop in there. I have never been to a quieter stadium than Old Trafford, and I went up there. When did we get? We did videos. You'd have seen it on the Hammers Chat videos. Been up there in recent years, very very quiet. And there was a time when they had Ibrahimovic and they had Rooney. This recent years, good team, good players in there. Still can. Honestly, absolute tourists, and that's why it's so sad. And I didn't want that to see that happen to West Ham. But they don't bring an awful lot to the table apart from money. But how important is money? Are we that desperate to pay a player 100 grand a week, which are then in a couple of time be 130, then 150, and what, in 10 years' time? Players, even at West Ham, earning 200 grand a week? Why? Is it right? No, I quite frankly, I don't care. And the thing about the Premier League is, the Premier League is a 20-team league. It takes 14 votes to ratify a motion. Well, that's quite key, isn't it, really? Because all we would have to do is swallow the pride of the money. And I understand there's a certain element of turkeys voting for Christmas here. But accept that actually we're not going to get the same money that we got previously. However, just pay the players a bit less. They can still be millionaires, maybe just not multi-millionaires every year. Maybe someone earns 10 million a year, maybe bring it back to 2 million a year. There will still be a fantastic TV deal on offer. But I just wonder if the 14 clubs get together, and it's 5 that want to go and bugger off and do the European Super League, why don't we just all get together and say, do your European Super League, but don't bother patronising us by telling us you'll grace us with your presence. Go off, you do it. And why don't we kick them out of domestic football? I honestly don't know why we wouldn't. Well, I do. It'd be money. But I think it's high time that football stopped making decisions because of money. Would it really be so bad if what happened was we reconstituted, let's say, the Premier League without those teams, all those teams that want to do the European Super League? I'm guessing Liverpool, Man United, we know they're in there. Let's imagine Arsenal is as well. Let's imagine Chelsea is as well. We don't know who the other one might be. It might be Tottenham, it might be Man City. We don't know. Maybe it's one other, but probably not. But what do we actually say to those? Do you know what? You've negotiated behind our back. You're out. And it would only take all the other chairmen to go together. There would still be a massive TV deal there. And I mean a massive TV deal for whoever was left. And let's not do it with the carve-up. Let's give it equal share to everybody in the Premier League. And you can imagine, by the time you get equal share, not always that when you get equal opportunity do you get equal outcome, an equal result, but more or less you would have an even spread of wealth. When you've got an even spread of wealth, you'd have an even spread of ability. Other things would be taken into account, like how good your manager is, how good your academy is, and rightly so. But that's the old Formula 1 argument, isn't it? Put all the drivers in the same car and let's see who's the best. And if you did that, what a product would you'd have? Would it be so bad not playing Manchester United? Let me offer you the suggestion of mega clubs like Leeds and Wolves and West Ham. Yes, I say West Ham and Newcastle. And I'm forgetting some. Leicester. Imagine 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams battling it out for the Premier League title and it going down to the last 3 or 4 games or something like that. Would we really at that point, let's take West Ham out of the equation for a second, but let's just say we're in the mix. But just imagine that. Would it really be so bad? Going down to the last game of the season, if the 2 teams finishing up at the end, going for the Premier League title were Everton and Leeds, then the next season, maybe West Ham and Wolves. I'm not so sure. See, one of the reasons is, and this is what I think gets forgotten, there's a massive reason why the English Premier League is the richest in the world. And it's because it's the most watched. Why is it the most watched? I think there's a few reasons. But I think one of them is the pace and the ferocity of the football. I think bad defending has a little bit to play in it, by the way. So you get your 4-3s and your 3-0s. I mean, look at what just happened with West Ham and Tottenham. Whilst let's be fair, you've probably aged all West Ham and Tottenham fans by about 10 years. I think if you were over the other side of the world watching that game, you certainly would have got your, I was going to say your 5 pence worth, your 14.99's worth, or whatever the case may be. The other reason why the Premier League is most popular and then the Bundesliga is the second most popular are the crowds, the vociferous atmospheres. Yes, I know we don't have any at the moment. Granted, fair point. Nonetheless, when it all gets back to normal, touch wood, with some wood, there you go, some wood, and let's all hope that it does before too long. I think the atmospheres come back. In many respects, West Ham are not in a great position because of the composition of the stadium. That's another argument. That's another talk. I'd like to think at some point things change at West Ham. We do something with the stadium and we get close to the pitch again, by hook or by crook, certainly. But I do think when the fans come back, you're going to have a lot of fans that come back who are going to be desperate to get back, really grateful that their football has come back, really grateful that their routine has come back, and they're going to be absolutely delighted to get back and support their team. And all the clubs I've mentioned, and others as well, they're going to be making noise. They're going to be massive noise at Molineux, massive noise at Selhurst Park, massive noise at Goodison Park, or whatever they're going to knock down and rebuild, massive noise at Ellen Road, and you get what I mean. The atmosphere will be there. I am not entirely sure, by the way, that Manchester United, when they play Paris Saint-Germain for the 3rd or 4th time during that season, will be pulling massive crowds. I think they might be a little bit bored of it. I'm not entirely sure that they're going to make a ton of noise. Why would they? They don't make any noise anyway, as it is. And I'm not entirely sure how many fans are going to travel overseas to see these wonderful glossy fixtures, which they think they're going to do. I do think initially the first TV deal that they got would be a big one. But I do think eventually, over a small period of time, it would fizzle out. I still think they'd be interested in the European Super League. But I think eventually people would still, like they do now, glance over at the Premier League and look at the teams and look at the humdingers and look at the ferocious nature in which our domestic football is played, and our domestic football is adored around the world. I still think we'd be getting good TV deals. I think at that point people would be looking and saying, well, hold on, it's actually the Premier League's got the exciting games, not the European Super League. Granted, technically the world's best players would play there. But when has that ever bothered West Ham? Let's be perfectly honest. When have West Ham ever had the best player in the world? Bobby Moore. When since then? Paolo Di Canio was brilliant. He wasn't the best player in the world. Paolo Di Canio was a broken version of Bergkamp or Zola. West Ham got him because he wasn't quite right. He was broken. It's the same with Payet. If Payet had been consistent, if Payet had been right, he wouldn't be playing at West Ham. He wouldn't be playing at Real Madrid all his career. West Ham have never had the best players, but it don't matter. And by and large, they're not our heroes there anyway. A lot of our heroes are people like James Collins, Carlton Cole. He's not the best players in the world, but we loved them. And I'm not entirely sure that they know what they're getting themselves into. And I'm absolutely sickened by what they've done. Because what they've done is, by offering to help out the lower league clubs, what it was the very essence of a wolf in sheep's clothing. It was a man drowning, and I'm talking about the Football League here. It was a man drowning. And the person leaning over the side of the lifeboat with their hand outstretched was Man United and Liverpool. And they were saying to the drowning clubs, take our arm, take our hand, we'll pull you back in the boat, we'll pull you to safety. But just before we save you, we'll take your house, we'll empty your bank, we'll give you a little bit, but then in a couple of years' time you got nothing. We'll probably take your wife as well. And it was dressed up as something nice. It was dressed up as the clubs wanting to help, but everybody saw through it. And now you have seen that rubber stamped. They didn't get their way. So what are they going to do now? Are they coming back with another attempt to help the lower league clubs? Oh, no, no, no. No, they didn't get their own way. So what they're going to do now is they're going to go it alone. We don't need you, they're saying. We'll go and do it in the Premier. We'll go and do it in the European Super League. But we'll still throw you a bone. You need us. So we're going to take our European Super League money. You can't come and join us. You can't be promoted to that. And we're going to take the Premier League money, and you lot will get what's left. And I think, oh, really? Oh, really? All I really want are the other chairman, because it's been talked about for years, by the way, and it never really happens. But the reason it never really happens is it's always been talked about as separate from UEFA or FIFA. It seems serious now because they've got FIFA involved. So now FIFA are not feeling marginalised. Now FIFA are thinking, hey, oh, we'll have a bit of this. And they don't mind a bit of that, FIFA. They like it quite a lot, actually. Operating from their bunker under a Swiss mountain, stroking their cat. Probably not doing that, but you know what I mean. It's very, very shady. It's very suspicious. Why else would the FBI have investigated them, for goodness sake? So I'm not so sure. I don't care. I'm not scared by it. Let them threaten. Let them do what they want. But all I want is the chairman in the Premier League to have the backbone to stand up and say, OK, you do this. But if you do it, we're kicking you out. And at that point, and I don't think it'll be a couple of years, at that point in 10, 15 years' time, when everybody is bored, and I mean bored of seeing Arsenal and Bayern Munich again and again and again and again. And at the point where the crowds have dwindled, at the point where there is no interest whatsoever, at the point whereby you get towards the end of the league and you already know who's going to win, and the games become disinteresting because there's no relegation, and the people that can't win the league are just passing it around with no urgency, trying not to get themselves injured. At that point, when they look over at a ferocious Premier League, still getting big gates, Newcastle, 52,000. All the clubs getting massive, massive gate receipts, having big, exciting games. At that point, when they look over and they think, actually, excuse me, can we come back and join the Premier League, please? I hope at that point we have enough about us that we can turn around and we can say, sorry, fellas, made your bed, you can lie in it.